The discovery the silent patrol commander Vexler of the Zaltharian Imperial fleet had been patrolling the Outer Rim territories for 17 cycles without incident. His vessel, the Skybreaker, was a respectable cruiser that had seen action in dozens of border disputes. The routine was always the same: scan the sectors, log any anomalies, and return to base for debriefing. Nothing ever happened out here in the empty dark between star systems. The region was considered dead space, too far from any habitable worlds to be worth colonizing, and too empty of resources to attract miners or traders. But on this particular day, everything changed. The sensor operator, a young Zaltharian named Kevrin, noticed something unusual on her display. At first, she thought it was a malfunction, some error in the equipment that was showing impossible readings. She ran diagnostics twice before calling for the commander. Vexler approached her station with casual curiosity, expecting nothing more than a minor technical issue that would require a report and maybe a replacement sensor array. What he saw on the screen made his blood run cold. The energy signature was massive, far larger than anything in the Zaltharian database. It registered as a single object, but the scale was wrong. Nothing that size should be generating that kind of power output. His first thought was that they had discovered some kind of ancient artifact, perhaps a relic from one of the precursor civilizations that had supposedly existed millions of years ago. His second thought was that they needed reinforcements immediately. The impossible. Ship Vexler ordered the Skybreaker to approach the signature cautiously, keeping weapons powered but not locked. Standard first contact protocols demanded caution but not immediate hostility. As they drew closer, the visual sensors began to resolve the object, and what they showed seemed impossible. It was a ship, unmistakably artificial, but its dimensions defied everything the Zaltharians knew about spacecraft engineering. The vessel was over 15 kilometers long, a massive construction of dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Its hull was smooth in some places and covered with geometric patterns in others, suggesting multiple layers of armor or perhaps sensor arrays. Massive engines at the rear glowed with a blue-white light that indicated power generation on a scale the Zaltharians had never witnessed. The ship bristled with structures that could only be weapon emplacements, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, positioned to provide overlapping fields of fire in every direction. The crew of the Skybreaker stared in silent awe. Several officers whispered prayers to old gods that most Zaltharians no longer believed in. Kevrin's hands shook as she tried to gather more data, her instruments struggling to process the information they were receiving. The ship was not just large, it was technologically advanced beyond anything in known space. The energy readings suggested power cores that operated on principles the Zaltharians did not understand. The hull composition included elements that should not exist in those combinations. Vexler made a decision that would change galactic history. He ordered his communications officer to broadcast a standard greeting on all frequencies, identifying the Skybreaker as a vessel of the Zaltharian Empire and requesting identification from the unknown ship. The message went out and they waited, every second feeling like an eternity. The massive ship hung in space, silent and still, giving no indication that it had noticed the tiny cruiser approaching it. First words, then. After what felt like hours, but was actually only 90 seconds, a response came. The communication system crackled to life with a transmission that was perfectly clear, transmitted in flawless Zaltharian language with proper grammar and pronunciation that suggested deep study of their culture. The voice was female, calm and professional, with an underlying tone of confidence that came from genuine strength rather than bluster. The speaker identified herself as Captain Elena Vasquez of the Earth vessel Prometheus, representing the United Terran Alliance. She thanked the Skybreaker for their greeting and apologized for any alarm their presence might have caused. She explained that humanity had only recently developed faster than light travel, And this was their first voyage beyond their home system. They had not expected to encounter other intelligent species so soon, but they were pleased to make contact and hoped to establish friendly relations. Vexler listened to every word with growing disbelief. Earth was not in any database. The Terran Alliance was unknown. Humanity had never been catalogued by Zaltharian scouts or mentioned in any galactic trade network. Yet here they were, piloting a ship that made Zaltharian engineering look primitive by comparison, speaking as if they were equals rather than newcomers to a galaxy that had been civilized for thousands of years. He responded carefully, choosing his words with diplomatic precision. He welcomed Captain Vasquez to this region of space and expressed interest in learning more about humanity and their homeworld. He suggested that perhaps they could arrange a meeting between their governments to discuss trade and mutual cooperation. He did not mention that he had already sent an encrypted message to Zaltharian High Command, informing them of the situation and requesting instructions. The gathering. Storm Captain Vasquez accepted his suggestion. With apparent warmth, she proposed that representatives from both species meet aboard the Prometheus in 12 hours, giving both sides time to prepare. She offered to provide detailed information about human technology and culture in advance of the meeting, as a gesture of good faith. She also mentioned, almost casually, that the Prometheus was one of 3 Titan-class warships currently in service with the Terran fleet, with 7 more under construction. That single piece of information sent shockwaves through the Skybreaker's crew. 3 ships of this size already operational, with more coming. That meant humanity had industrial capacity and resources that rivaled or exceeded the entire Zaltharian Empire. It meant they were not a minor species stumbling into space, but a major power that had developed in isolation and was now ready to take their place on the galactic stage. Within hours, the news had spread across Zaltharian space. Emergency sessions were convened in the Imperial Senate. Military strategists ran simulations trying to determine if humanity represented a threat or an opportunity. Diplomatic corps prepared briefs on how to approach a species that seemed friendly but carried devastating power. Intelligence services scrambled to find any information about Earth and its people, searching through centuries of astronomical data and ancient legends for any mention of humanity. Other species heard the news and reacted with their own mixture of fear and curiosity. The Corventhi Republic, longtime rivals of the Zaltharians, immediately dispatched their own ships to make contact with humanity. The Nexarian Collective, a federation of trading species, saw potential profit in establishing early relations with this new power. The Drayan Sovereignty, an isolationist empire, reinforced their borders and went on high alert. Within a single day, the political landscape of the entire galaxy had shifted. The test, but not everyone was happy about humanity's arrival. Admiral Zexter of the Zaltharian Third Fleet was a traditionalist who believed in strength above all else. When he received the report about the Prometheus, his first instinct was not diplomatic curiosity, but military suspicion. He saw a potential threat that needed to be assessed and, if necessary, eliminated before it could grow stronger. Without authorization from High Command, Zexter diverted 3 of his heavy cruisers to the location where the Skybreaker had encountered the human ship. His plan was simple. He would approach the Prometheus with weapons armed and demand a full inspection of their vessel. If the humans refused, he would take it as proof of hostile intent. If they complied, he would gather intelligence on their technology. Either way, he would demonstrate that the Zaltharian Empire did not bow to newcomers. No matter how impressive their ships appeared, his flotilla arrived at the rendezvous point, just as Commander Vexler was preparing to shuttle over to the Prometheus for the planned diplomatic meeting. Zexter immediately broadcast on open channels, ordering the human ship to power down their weapons and prepare to be boarded. He stated that this was a matter of galactic security and that refusal would be considered an act of aggression. The response from Captain Vasquez was measured but firm. She stated that the Prometheus was a diplomatic vessel on a peaceful mission and would not submit to hostile boarding. She reminded Admiral Zixter that humanity had not threatened anyone and had every right to defend themselves if attacked. She urged him to reconsider his actions before making a mistake. That could have serious consequences. Zexter interpreted this as defiance and ordered his ships to assume attack formation. His 3 cruisers moved to surround the Prometheus, weapons charging and targeting systems locking on to what they calculated were the human ship's most vulnerable points. The Admiral gave Captain Vasquez one final warning. Submit to inspection or face the consequences. Asterisk. Power revealed what happened next would be discussed in military academies across the galaxy for generations. The Prometheus did not fire a single shot. It did not need to. The massive ship's defensive systems activated with such speed and precision that the Zaltharian sensors barely registered the change before it was complete. Energy shields materialized around the hull, shimmering fields that analysis showed could withstand firepower that would vaporize a planet. Point defense systems deployed from hidden ports. Thousands of automated weapons that tracked every incoming threat with perfect accuracy. But most impressive was what the Prometheus did to the Zaltharian ships themselves. Some kind of electromagnetic pulse, carefully calibrated and precisely targeted, washed over all 3 cruisers simultaneously. It did not destroy them or even damage them permanently, but it did shut down every offensive system on all 3 vessels. Weapons went offline. Targeting computers crashed. Fire control systems rebooted into safe mode. In less than 5 seconds, Admiral Zexter's flotilla had been rendered completely harmless without a single casualty. Captain Vasquez's voice came over the communications channel again, still calm, with an edge of steel that had not been there before. She stated that humanity did not wish to fight anyone, but they would absolutely defend themselves against aggression. She had just demonstrated that the Prometheus could disable the Zaltharian ships without destroying them. She hoped this would serve as proof of both human capability and human restraint. She suggested that Admiral Zexter withdraw his vessels and allow the diplomatic process to continue as planned. The silence that followed was deafening. Vexler watched from the skybreaker as his military superior faced the most humiliating moment of his career. Zexter had no choice but to comply. His ships were defenseless, and the human vessel had shown it could have destroyed them easily, but chose mercy instead. He ordered a full retreat, his voice tight with barely suppressed rage and shame. As the 3 cruisers limped away, their systems slowly coming back online, the galaxy watched and learned a crucial lesson. Humanity had announced their presence not with threats or boasts, but with a simple demonstration of overwhelming technological superiority tempered by restraint and diplomatic wisdom. They were not conquerors seeking to dominate, but neither were they weak newcomers to be bullied or exploited. They were something the galaxy had not seen in a very long time. They were equals, and everyone would need to adjust to that new reality. Asterisk the revelation, the meeting commander. Vexler shuttled across to the Prometheus with a small diplomatic team, his mind still reeling from what he had witnessed. The incident with Admiral Zexter had spread across every communication channel in known space. Some called it humanity's first victory. Others called it a warning shot that echoed across the galaxy. Vexler simply called it terrifying. He had spent his entire career believing the Zaltharian Empire was the pinnacle of military power. And in 5 seconds, that belief had been shattered. The shuttle bay of the Prometheus was larger than most space stations. As they approached, massive doors opened to reveal a cavernous interior that could easily hold dozens of ships the size of the skybreaker. The bay was organized with military precision, with clearly marked landing zones and automated systems that guided their shuttle to a designated platform. When they disembarked, they found themselves standing in a space that was both functional and impressive, designed to accommodate visitors while subtly reminding them of humanity's industrial capabilities. Captain Elena Vasquez met them personally, accompanied by a small honor guard of human soldiers in dark blue uniforms. She was shorter than Vexler had expected, standing perhaps 1.7 meters tall, with dark hair pulled back in a practical style and eyes that seemed to miss nothing. Her uniform was simple but well made, adorned with insignia that the Zaltharians did not recognize but assumed indicated rank and achievement. When she extended her hand in the human gesture of greeting, Vexler took it carefully. Noting the surprising strength in her grip, she led them through corridors that hummed with barely contained power, past crew members who moved with purpose and discipline. The ship's interior was a marvel of engineering, with systems integrated so smoothly that it was difficult to tell where one ended and another began. Display screens showed information and languages that shifted automatically when Zaltharians approached, demonstrating translation technology far more advanced than anything currently in use. The artificial gravity was perfect, maintaining exactly one standard unit without the fluctuations that plagued even the best Zaltharian vessels. Understanding humanity. Conference room where they gathered was designed for diplomacy rather than intimidation. Comfortable seating adjusted to accommodate different body types, and refreshments were provided that had been specifically researched to be safe for Zaltharian consumption. Captain Vasquez began the meeting by apologizing again for the incident with Admiral Zexter, though she made it clear that humanity would always defend itself against aggression. She then offered something that no one had expected: complete transparency. Over the next several hours, she shared the story of humanity's development. Earth was located in a relatively isolated region of space, far from the major trade routes and established civilizations. Humans had evolved on their homeworld over millions of years, developing intelligence and tool use in response to challenging environmental conditions. They had fought wars among themselves, nearly destroying their planet multiple times, before finally achieving a fragile unity under the United Terran Alliance. Their technological development had followed a different path than most galactic species. Instead of discovering faster-than-light travel early and spreading slowly across nearby systems, humans had remained confined to their solar system for centuries. They had used that time to perfect their engineering, to push the boundaries of physics and material science, to build infrastructure on a massive scale. By the time they developed FTL capability, they had industrial capacity that would normally take a species thousands of years to achieve. Asterisk. Captain Vasquez explained that Earth's solar system contained multiple planets and hundreds of moons and asteroids. Humans had established colonies and mining operations throughout their home system, creating an integrated economy that produced resources on a staggering scale. The construction of the Titan-class warships had been a collaborative effort involving billions of people, working across dozens of facilities. Each ship represented not just military might, but the combined industrial output of an entire civilization focused on a single goal. She showed them data that the Zaltharians struggled to believe, production figures that exceeded the output of entire sectors, population numbers that rivaled the combined citizenry of multiple galactic empires, energy generation capacity that could power civilizations, research programs that had made breakthrough after breakthrough in fields the galaxy considered mature. Humanity had not just caught up to galactic civilization, they had potentially surpassed it in many crucial areas. The galactic response, while this meeting was taking place, the galaxy was in turmoil. Every major power was scrambling to understand what humanity's emergence meant for the existing order. The Zaltharian Empire convened emergency sessions where senators debated whether to pursue alliance or containment. Military leaders ran simulations that all came to the same uncomfortable conclusion. In a direct conflict with humanity, the outcome was uncertain at best and catastrophic at worst, got the Corvinthi Republic moved first, dispatching their most skilled diplomat with an offer of immediate trade relations and cultural exchange. They had always been more pragmatic than the Zaltharians, more willing to adapt to changing circumstances. Their leadership saw humanity not as a threat, but as an opportunity to shift the balance of power. If they could establish strong ties with the Terrans before anyone else, they would gain enormous advantages. The Nexarian collective was even faster, sending a delegation that arrived at the Prometheus within hours of the initial contact. The Nexarians were a federation of merchant species who had built their civilization on trade and information exchange. They offered humanity access to galactic markets, detailed star charts, and comprehensive databases on every known species. In return, they wanted preferential trade status and access to human technology that could revolutionize dozens of industries that other species watched and calculated. The Virax Confederacy, a military alliance that had dominated their region for centuries, went on high alert and reinforced their borders. The Luminari, an ancient species known for their philosophical wisdom, sent a simple message of welcome and an invitation to visit their homeworld when humanity felt ready. The Scythe Marauders, a loose confederation of pirate clans, immediately began avoiding any space that might contain human ships. The truth about Earth back in the conference room, Captain Vasquez was answering questions about Earth itself. She displayed holographic images of humanity's homeworld, a blue and green sphere covered in oceans and continents. The Zaltharians stared in wonder at a planet that seemed almost impossibly beautiful, with diverse ecosystems and weather patterns that created stunning visual displays. She showed them images of human cities, massive urban centers that housed millions but were designed with greenery and open spaces integrated throughout. She explained that Earth had nearly died several times in human history. Pollution and climate change had brought their civilization to the brink of collapse before humanity had learned to live sustainably. Nuclear weapons had almost ended their species during various conflicts before wisdom had prevailed. Disease and famine had killed billions before medicine and agriculture had advanced enough to prevent such tragedies. Humanity had survived not because they were the strongest or the smartest, but because they refused to give up even when extinction seemed inevitable. This revelation gave the Zaltharians a new perspective on their unexpected guests. Humanity's technology was not the product of some genetic superiority or ancient inheritance. It was the result of desperation, determination, and an almost stubborn refusal to accept limits. Humans had clawed their way up from near extinction multiple times, learning from each disaster and building systems to prevent the next one. Their warships were not tools of conquest, but insurance policies against a universe that had repeatedly tried to kill them. Vexler asked the question that everyone wanted answered. What did humanity want? What were their goals now that they had reached the stars and discovered they were not alone? Captain Vasquez's answer was surprisingly simple. Humans wanted what every intelligent species wanted: security for their people, resources to maintain their civilization, knowledge to expand their understanding, and friends to share the vast emptiness of space. They did not want to conquer or dominate, but they would absolutely not be conquered or dominated by anyone else. New alliances. The meeting concluded with preliminary agreements that would shape the future of galactic relations. The Zaltharian Empire would formally recognize humanity's sovereignty over their home system and any colonies they established. Trade routes would be opened and embassies would be exchanged. Scientific cooperation would be explored, with both sides sharing knowledge in areas where they had expertise. Most importantly, both sides committed to peaceful resolution of any future disputes. Similar agreements were reached with the Corvinthi Republic and the Nexarian Collective over the following days. Each species approached humanity with their own interests and concerns, and each came away with deals that served mutual benefit. The Corvinthi gained access to human manufacturing techniques that would boost their economy. The Nexarians secured trade agreements that would make several of their merchant families fantastically wealthy. Humanity gained detailed information about galactic geography, politics, and technology that would have taken them centuries to discover on their own. But the most significant development came from an unexpected source. The Drayan sovereignty, the isolationist empire that had initially viewed humanity with suspicion, sent a private message to Captain Vasquez. The Drayan had spent centuries avoiding contact with other species, believing that isolation was the only path to security. But they recognized in humanity a kindred spirit, another civilization that valued independence above all else. They proposed a mutual defense pact, agreeing to come to each other's aid if either was attacked by a third party. This alliance shocked the galaxy more than anything else had. The Drayan never made treaties with anyone. Their reputation for cold isolation was legendary. Yet here they were, offering humanity their trust and their military support. It signaled to every observer that humanity was not just another new species to be absorbed into existing power structures. They were a force that could fundamentally alter the political landscape. The word spreads within a month of first contact. Humanity had gone from complete unknown to major galactic player. The Prometheus and its sister ships, the Atlas and the Atlas. Titan began carefully mapped exploration missions into different regions of space. Everywhere they went, they were met with a mixture of awe and anxiety. Species that might have tried to exploit or intimidate a typical newcomer instead offered friendship and trade. No one wanted to repeat Admiral Zexther's mistake. Human diplomats and scientists spread out across known space, establishing embassies and research stations. They shared carefully selected technologies that improved lives without destabilizing existing economies. Medical advances that cured diseases considered incurable. Agricultural techniques that increased food production. Energy systems that reduced pollution. Humanity was not just flexing military muscle. They were demonstrating that they could be valuable partners who improved the galaxy for everyone. The cultural impact was equally profound. Human art and music began appearing on worlds hundreds of light years from Earth. Human literature was translated into dozens of languages and became surprisingly popular. Human philosophy and ethics were debated in academic institutions that had existed for thousands of years. Young members of various species started adopting human fashions and slang, much to the dismay of their more traditional elders. There were growing pains, of course. Misunderstandings born from different cultural values. Trade disputes that required careful negotiation. Military incidents when human ships strayed too close to sensitive borders. But each problem was addressed through dialogue rather than violence, establishing precedents that would govern human interactions with the galaxy for generations to come. A changed galaxy, 2 years after the Prometheus emerged from hyperspace and silenced the galaxy with its presence. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of her ship and looked out at a very different universe than the one she had first encountered. Earth was no longer isolated and unknown. Humanity was now a recognized power, with allies and trading partners scattered across dozens of star systems. The Titan-class warships that had once seemed like unnecessary extravagance now served as guardians of peace and symbols of human determination. She thought about all the species they had met, each one unique and valuable in their own way. The honor-bound Zaltharians, who had overcome their pride to become genuine friends. The pragmatic Corvinthi, who saw opportunity in every situation. The merchant Nexarians, who connected everyone through trade. The mysterious Drayan, who had found in humanity a kindred spirit. All of them had enriched human understanding and made the galaxy feel less empty. But she also thought about the challenges ahead. There were still species they had not contacted, some friendly and some potentially hostile. There were unexplored regions of space that might contain wonders or dangers. There were technological mysteries that humanity had not yet solved, and political situations that could spiral into conflict if not handled carefully. The galaxy was vast and complex, and humanity was still learning its place within it. A message arrived on her personal communicator from Earth. The United Terran Alliance had approved construction of 10 more Titan-class warships and authorized exploration missions into regions beyond current mapped space. They were also establishing a formal diplomatic corps and expanding their scientific research programs. Humanity was not content to simply join galactic civilization. They intended to help shape its future. Captain Vasquez smiled as she read the message. 2 years ago they had been alone, wondering if anyone else was out there. Now they were part of something larger, contributing to a community that spanned the stars. The Prometheus had done more than announce humanity's arrival. It had opened a door to possibilities that previous generations could only dream about. And this was just the beginning. She turned from the observation window and headed back to the bridge. There was work to do, missions to plan, diplomats to transport, and a galaxy to explore. Humanity had emerged from isolation, and the universe had indeed stopped breathing for a moment. But now everyone was moving forward together, building something new, something that honored the best qualities of every species involved, something that gave hope for a future where intelligence and cooperation triumphed over fear and violence. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly how it should be. The end asterisk.